Well, good morning. It's been a while. I'm sorry. Scott Campbell, uh, retired, retired pastor in French Quebec and enjoying retirement. Very, very positive. But I still want to be communicating uh, what I think is important. In fact, the most important things about this life and the next life. And so I've kind of thought back over my teachings at the church, the French church, and I remember doing a series on that I entitled Face to Face with Jesus. I mean, Jesus is the center, right, for the Christian. We believe he's the center for everyone in the world, or that he should be. And so I did this series to help us take a better look at him by how did he meet face to face with people while he was walking on this earth. And so I'd like to try to just kind of go through some of those over a course of maybe a month or two. I don't know how often I'll come on, but I found them helpful at the time. The people in the church found them helpful, and I hope you will too. So the first one that came to mind is one of my favorite passages in the New Testament. It's found in the book of John, the Gospel of John, where he's an apostle and he writes. He's a follower of Jesus, and he writes then about the life of Jesus. And in chapter 2 of his work, there's a very well known story about Jesus going to a small town of Canaan during a wedding feast. And those feasts would go on for up to a week in the Jewish culture, eating, drinking, dancing, uh, and obviously huge event, especially in a small town where probably everyone would be invited. And so Jesus and his disciples, Jesus and his mother as well, Mary, she's there. And somewhere in the week of festivities, the wine runs out, and we see Mary, the mother of Jesus, coming to him, coming to him, and saying, essentially, "Can you do something about this?" And initially, he kind of uh, puts a little bit of a barrier in saying, "Hey, my time to show certain things hasn't yet come." And yet, the great thing about this passage is we see Jesus getting totally involved. He's all in, and he decides to help. I don't know whether he feels uh, the shame of the young couple getting married, the shame of their parents, because to run out of wine is, well, that's it. It's going to be shameful. Their humiliation. He knows it's going this way, so he and possibly it's kind of a last act for his mother. He, in terms of him, he grew up obeying her, listening to her, and he needs to, in some way, take some distance from her. But she's asked him to consider it, and he does. And he, of course, we see him changing water into wine. One of the things I like so much about this passage is Quebecers generally love wine, okay? All French people and most Europeans do, as do now more and more North Americans. But is he's so uh, totally attached to his physical human life. First of all, he's at this marriage, and there is dancing, and there's lots of eating, and they are drinking wine. And he is in the middle of it all. I think he's part and parcel. So many times religious leaders or gurus uh, try to stay away from the everyday life. It's like they don't want to dirty their hands. They're not as involved. They kind of live in an ivory tower, separated from quote the normal people who are, of course, by these religious leaders often considered uh, terrible people, great sinners, uh, people who want to have nothing to do with God, right? So the religious leader will talk to them from afar, will preach to them, will but not really be living day to day with them. Well, that's just the opposite of Jesus. Jesus is right into the day to day. He's into all parts of life, right? He's into the marriage feast, the festivities, the joy. Obviously, when there's a death and there's mourning, he's there and everything in between. That's the way he is. And we need to take encouragement from that. Whatever we're living, if we're inviting him in, he is in that situation. He will be there for us. That's the way he is. And yet, religious leaders of the day condemned him for it. And he talked about how they complained. He said, when John the Baptist, my predecessor who came announcing my coming, he was an ascetic. He kind of kept himself away. You condemned him. And now I eat, I drink. You call me a glutton. You call me a drunkard. But that's my call here to be involved with the people. So the great thing, he changes the water into wine. And so we see this aspect of him. He cares about the humiliation of the couple, their shame, and the family. He cares about those who've put time and money or effort to come for a week to the festivities. He doesn't want them to be disappointed. He he has chosen in kind of one last way uh, as a son to honor his mother. He has chosen to show his disciples this is the way to live. You're not apart. You're not to be some ascetic group. You're to be wholly involved with daily life. And just to finish, the one of the powerful images or symbols that comes out of this passage is Jesus takes the water, and that water was a water, it says in the passage, of purification. So the Jews used that for certain washings, what you might call officially ablutions, washings to purify themselves. So that's what water does. It purifies the outside of our body. Now, when Jesus turns the water into wine, he not only meets the need on one level, on purely the marriage earthly level, but needless to say, he's prefiguring, he's looking forward to his death, right? His having to give his life blood for the world, for each one of us, to allow us to connect to God, to cover our evil, our sin. So when he changes it to wine, it makes us think of his blood. It makes us think of communion, or what might be called the Lord's Supper, and it so already it's prefiguring the work he's going to do when he will die, and that blood, that wine, then that those people are drinking, is a symbol of what's going to come and how people will be cleansed on the inside. So the water is an outside cleansing, which is important, but the wine is showing an inside cleansing. a purification. And that's what happens when a person opens their life to Jesus and he enters and purifies, forgives, and renews. And that's what that wine symbolizes. And it's so significant, of course, and I finish with this, that the steward of the wedding picks up this wine that he doesn't know where it's come from, tastes it, and says, "This is amazing. You have kept the best wine for the end of the festivities, for the end of the week." Usually people get everybody drunk and then they serve the cheap wine. But the steward says, "This is amazing. You've kept the best for the last." And just look at all the meaning in that that Jesus is the best uh, of all that's come before. He provides the best. He he turns situations around so they'll go from bad to better to the best. And that's all wrapped up in that steward's statement. You have served the best wine last. And this is what it will be, not only on this earth, but in the next life, where Jesus will take us to a whole new life to be for eternity with Him and with the Father and with the family of God. It's a great passage. And that's coming face to face with who He is, not just what He does, but through what He does, we see who He is: compassion, caring, love, wanting to go beyond, wanting to fill in our gaps, meet our needs. Wow, He's great.